आदरणीय श्री आरिफ मोहम्मद खान सर, सर आपका वाव फेस्टिवल में बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। मैं आज इस पावन मंच से आपका वंदन अभिनंदन करती हूँ। नमस्कार, स्वागत आपका। Greetings to everyone. Requesting the dignitaries to be seated. I will be calling all the dignitaries here on stage. As it is said, ladies and gentlemen, inviting here on stage with a thunderous applause, respected Adarniya Shri Arif Mohammad Khan sir, Honorable Governor of Kerala. We have amongst us Adarniya Shri Shekhar Gupta ji, journalist, author, founder, and current editor-in-chief of The Print. Taliyan barkarar rahe. We have amongst us on stage Shri Sanjeev Chopra ji, historian, policy analyst, festival director, Valley of Words, International Literature and Arts Festival, Dehradun. एक बार फिर मंच पर उपस्थित आदरणीय अतिथिगण को मैं नमन, वंदन और अभिनंदन करती हूँ. Greetings and welcome to the distinguished dignitaries present with us here on the stage, and a warm welcome to everyone present with us for the very special segment on text, context and national interest. I present to you few important lines. Truth is one and same everywhere, but it has different dresses. Our misfortune is that the world worships terms and not their meanings. सत्य तो एक है, लेकिन उसके अर्थ जो हैं वो कई हैं. कहीं ना कहीं दुर्भाग्य ये है कि हम सत्य को भूल रहे हैं और जो उसके पीछे छुपी जो अहम चीजें हैं उसको भी नजरअंदाज कर रहे हैं. These important lines are there from the very important work, that is Text and Context, Quran and Contemporary Challenges, a compilation of thought-provoking articles written by Adarniya Shri Arif Mohammad Khan sir. The articles in the books are very significant for various issues reflecting on education, history, amongst others. हम सब जानते हैं कि टेक्स्ट जो है बहुत अनिवार्य है. It's a very important piece and meaning of information. But it acquires significance when we look at in the bigger framework of context. सूचना जो है, जो ज्ञान है, जब तक हम उसको उसकी पृष्ठभूमि से नहीं जोड़ते, वो कहीं ना कहीं अधूरा हो जाता है. और टेक्स्ट और कॉन्टेक्स्ट के संवाद और इस मंथन को यदि हम राष्ट्रीय हित से जोड़कर समझें, तो क्या कुछ नया उजागर होगा? When we try to correlate text and context within the bigger framework of national interest. Now this is what this very special segment here at Valley of Words International Literature and Arts Festival has in store for us. So on that note, without further ado, I would request our very distinguished dignitaries present with us here on dais, Adarniya Shri Shekhar Gupta ji, journalist, author, founder and current editor of The Print, Adarniya Shri Sanjeev Chopra ji, historian, policy analyst and festival director, wow, and most respected Adarniya Shri Arif Mohammad Khan sir, Honorable Governor of Kerala. I request the dignitaries to begin the much awaited deliberations. Over to the respective members here on the dais. Taliyan ho jaye, I request.
Thank you, Amna.
Sanjeev sir, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amna Mirza. It's actually the keynote conversation for the value of words, the most significant part, because words is all about conversation. It's all about, understanding each other and understanding diversity, and, it's better to debate and discuss and understand text and context. And of course, Shekharji's column is the national interest. So that's why, as the curator of this festival, I thought you have to give every session a name. So I thought, what better name than text, context, and national interest? Very briefly, text and context is a compilation of essays which I asked every IAS officer trainee to read at the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration. Because whether it is a text from the Quran or from the Bhagavad Gita or from the Bible or from the Upanishad, it has to be seen in the context in which the statement is being made. And that is what our Honorable Governor Arif Mohammad Khan, when he wrote those columns, he was not the governor. He wrote the column as a regular column, and I would strongly recommend that we can all go through it. Shekhar Gupta ji writes his regular column, The National Interest, which comes in the in the business standard and is available all over. So without much ado, may I request you, Shekharji, to steer the conversation, to start the conversation, because there's no better conversationalist than you. So I rest my words here and over to you, sir.
Until when has he got? Thank you very much. I know you've all come to listen to Arif Saab. To many of us who go back, in our case, 4 decades, Arif Bhai, and I will give you the context of how we got to know each other in just a bit as we go along. So, first of all, we are so privileged to have you because he is what we might describe as a rare bird. Rare bird in the sense that he's never been, I know he's governor, maybe his chief minister will not be happy if I say so, but he's never been an establishmentarian. An establishmentarian in the sense that somebody who's given a script or a text, whether it's a religious text, it's a political text, it's an ideological text, he will not blindly rattle it, cram it up, and then follow it. He's not one of those. And that's the reason I said I will set the context of how we came to know each other. We came to know each other in 1985, some part of 1985. We knew him as a politician, but personally and in terms of our interaction. That is when the Shah Bano case had just started. Supreme Court had given its judgment, upholding her demand for alimony, which under Islamic personal law, she was not entitled to. It was some 500 rupees a month or even less, I think 147 rupees a month, that's all. So that immediately became a big cause celebrate for the Muslim clergy, who said that this Supreme Court had interfered with our personal law. This was a poor woman, I think in Indore. She had no idea what this had come to. This would have just been forgotten, but Muslim clergy picked it up, and immediately the clergy around Rajiv Gandhi, who sort of were, in a way, the Thekadars, if I may say, for Muslim vote, or self-proclaimed so, because, we figured out over time that that's not how the Muslims vote, because they did not vote for Rajiv after that. So they went to him and they said, if you do this, then Muslim vote will leave you and you'll be finished. And so he came under their pressure. The only voice in his government and in his party who said, you are making a mistake. One, it's a mistake in principle. Second, you cannot simply go by the text of something. The context, this is the 20th century. आप अपने आप कहते हैं कि इंडिया को 21st century में लेके आएंगे, 1985 है. You are saying मेरा भारत महान वगैरह वगैरह. आपको ये काम नहीं करना चाहिए. And third, he said that, look, I know my Muslim politics. I know young Muslim people. They are not going to be swayed by this. But they didn't listen to him. He left the Congress. And the rest is history. Now, there is something I will say at this point, which he doesn't have to agree with. But the fact is, if Rajiv had not made that blunder then, if he had listened to him, you would not have had 2 BJP governments with a full majority, right? And the fact, so he gets the credit for not having listened to, right? If they had listened to him, because see, 1984, the government in which he was a minister, 1984 election was the last election in which the Congress party got a majority. It was also the last election in which any party got a majority until Narendra Modi in 2014. So for 30 years, that one Shah Bano issue set the context for Indian politics, and it does even now. So I thought that was a good, long, but substantive introduction to him. So he was always willing to speak his mind. And even now, I know TV channels love headlines. Who doesn't love headlines? And he's now risen to be such an apple of his chief minister's eye. it's entirely well earned because he speaks his mind. So, Arif Saab, text and context. How much liberty can we take with texts? Whatever the religion, it's religious books, Marx, Ambedkar, there are political texts also, Golwalkar. How much liberty can we take with any of these established texts to set them in context?
I think when you say established text, because we have every year thousands of books are published, as when you use the term established text, most possibly you are referring to scriptures and classics.
Yes, scriptures and also a lot of the political writing
Yeah,
which becomes
they
scriptures
also
also.
come under classics. They
Scriptures.
also come under classics. The books do not become scripture.
I'm moving from right to left. Please don't draw any political meanings in it. It's just that I had sun in my eye. So,
Any book, any book which acquires the status of scripture or classic, this is not something which is conferred by the author or his supporters only when over a long period of time and situation keeps changing all the time. If the book has the resilience where the reader can find something in the book with reference to the modern day challenges or basic principles which remain valid, what we call in India Sanatan Siddhant. I'm not using in the religious context. Sanatan Siddhant, something basically, if you fall down from the height of say 1,000 feet, if this happened 10,000 years ago, you will break your bones. If it happens today, then even now it will break bones of the person who falls down from there. So there are some Sanatan Siddhant. If any system, any book which has the capability to respond creatively to the challenges of the modern day, it acquires the status of a scripture or classic. And in India, our tradition says this world has been compared to a poisonous tree. It says, Sansar vish virakshasya dui phale amrito pame kavve amrit rasa swada sallapa sajjana ne saha. Which means that in this poison, the world has been compared to the poisonous tree, but this tree produces two fruits of inimitable value. They are full of nectar. And these two fruits are classics, scriptures, books of wisdom, and company of noble people, as I'm sitting now here between two great, two great thinkers from whom you can learn so many things. So, basically, when we say what kind of liberty we can take, in fact, too much liberty has been taken by people. And they have taken so much liberty that they have distorted the meaning of the original text. Just now, Shekhar bhai used the word that Supreme Court gave judgment in favor of Shah Bano, and according to clergy, she was not entitled to that under the Islamic law. Yes, it is true that under the law which was written by human beings, there was no provision for it. But certainly there was provision in the Quran on which the Honorable Supreme Court had relied. There is a verse in the Quran which clearly says, وَلِلْ مُطَلِّقَاتِ مَتَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ, which means, and for the divorced women also, there is a provision or maintenance or whatever name you want to give to it. And this is a duty obligatory on those who are righteous. Now, if you recall, Personal Law Board did not deny that this verse exists in Quran. They did not even deny the translation which was used by the Supreme Court. What they said was that this is an exhortation for the righteous, not for the ordinary run of Muslimin. Now, this is what is taking liberty with the text. Because the Quran opens with a line, verse, which says this book is for the righteous, muttaqeen. So, if you don't want to, because ultimately the scriptures don't lay down the law. The scriptures are full of commands. Command means you have the freedom. In fact, I would like to quote a verse from the Quran. Inna hadaynahu sabil. We have shown the right way. You have been shown the right way. Imma shakiran wa imma kafura. Now it is up to you whether you like, you may follow it. If you don't like, you do not follow it. You have the freedom, but there are consequences. But religion generally does not lay down the laws. Why religion does not lay down the law? Because laws always have a social context. Laws always have a, they are highly contextual. La yunkaro tagayyuro bil ahkam bi tagayyuri zama. This is one of the basic principles of Islamic jurisprudence, that with the change in times, the laws also change. Therefore, seek guidance from the scripture. Do not try to convert the provisions of the scripture into laws, because in the scripture there are so many things which were relevant to the times when it was revealed. They are relevant to the time. Everything cannot be applicable in all the times and all the situations, and that is why there is so much emphasis on studying the book and seeking wisdom from it.
Seeking direction from it. Now, would you take
Wisdom mostly.
wisdom, not direction?
Wisdom. And then use your own intelligence, your own, whatever you learn, then apply it to the situation.
So it's not just a final injunction. Thou shalt do this. Not
That is not the situation there.
that is not it.
Yeah.
So how would you put the same, apply the same logic to say, before Sanjeev, I'll let you come in because now that I've got him, for putting, say, Bhagavad Gita, Ambedkar, say, annihilation of caste,
Yes.
Marx and Golwalkar in context.
Yes. Bhagavad Gita is a book of wisdom. Bhagavad Gita is not a book of laws. It does not lay down laws. It teaches you wisdom. The wisdom that you learn from there, you can use that wisdom to deal with the problems, including making laws you are faced with. Basically, or say even you mentioned Dr. Ambedkar, annihilation of caste. Now what Gita says about the caste? Gita says that this system I have created based on gun karma vibhageshu, something like that. Based on not based on the birth. It is based on the qualities, innate qualities one is born with. and the merits which one has acquired through his studies. So I have created this system, Chatur Varnyam Mama Sirishtam, something like that. I don't remember exactly. But the last word which has been used is Chatur Varne, based on, last is Gun Karma Vibhagasha. Based on the division is based on the innate qualities, the qualities which you have acquired, and then you will have to find out which category you fit into. It is not based on the birth. In fact, we have such a wonderful story in the Upanishad, where I don't remember the name of the boy, but the mother name I remember, Jajala. Jajala. Her son comes to him and says, Mother, I want to be a brahmachari. She says, where is the problem? She said, but when I will go to the ashram, they will ask me my gotra. Son, the time I conceived you, I was working at 4-5 places and I do not really know who your father is. Therefore, if you go to the ashram and you tell them that you are so and so, son of Jajala. Sorry? Jabali, son of Jabali. He goes there, to the ashram of Rishi Gautam. He goes there. He asks the same question and he gives the reply which mother had instructed him to give. And he is immediately accepted. Why he was accepted? If it was birth-based. And not just that. I have something more, and that again is from Upanishads, where it says that it gives you names after names, where Nartako Garbha Sambhuto Vashishto Nama Maha Rishi. Rishi Vashisht was born to a woman who was dancer. Chandalo Garbha Sambhuta Shaktir Nam Mahabuni. Shaktir was born to a Chandal woman. Shopako Garbha Sambhuta Parasharo Mahamuni. Parashar was born to a woman who belonged to a group of people who used to eat the flesh of dog. And then Matsya Gandha, this is about Vyas, that he was born to Matsya Gandha. And the last line, after this one line, the refrain is Tapsa Brahmano Jata Tasmat Jatir Dakaranam. Brahmin is born out of tapas, out of austerity, out of this discipline which one imposes on himself, and the knowledge which he pursues, not because of the birth. Somebody is designated as a Brahmin. So, what I would say that what Dr. Ambedkar has written is my understanding is that does not contradict what our classics, what our scriptures, what our ancient books say on this topic, including Gita. So, what he tried was to annihilate the caste based on the birth. But as far as divisions, social divisions in the society are concerned, no society can do without these social divisions. You will have to have different people working in different fields.
And Marx now, since you live in the only Marxist run, under the only elected Marxist government in the world.
Yeah. That's quite a before I reply to your question, you have rightly pointed out the name of the mother was Jabla and the name of the son was Satyakama. You are asking me about the Marxist. I think if Marx today comes and he visits places where Marxism is ruling, then he will wonder where this system has come from. But so is the case with most of the ideology, because it has been, the history is full of such instances where the most dynamic revolutions, once they succeeded, then those who came into power, in order to entrench their positions, they kept parroting the name of the ideology, but in order to save their own positions and in order to entrench their position, they felt no hesitation in doing things which are totally contrary to that ideology. Now, surely, Marx in his manifesto has not said that underqualified and unqualified people should be appointed to various posts in the universities. Has Marx said it? He has not said it. Here, you have so many cases pending in the court, and the last one which I have stayed, underqualified person was being issued order for appointment as associate professor in the university. And this is not happening for the first time. Since last more than 50 years, and this is not my chart, Bharat Ratna Dr. C.N.R. Rao, who heads, despite his being quite advanced in years, he is still heading one of the biggest scientific establishment in Bengaluru.
That is JNSR in Bangalore.
In Bangalore.
Of advanced
yes.
research.
Dr. C.N.R. Rao had written a letter 3 years back to my predecessor, Justice Sadashivam Sir. And he said Kerala has one of the most robust school system in the country. But Kerala universities, research has come to a total stop. Why? Because bright students from Kerala, after 10+2, they don't want to stay in Kerala. They are so bright, they go anywhere in the country and they get admission into all national institutions. I had a meeting with one such group in Delhi, and I asked them, I said, I'm not trying to persuade you to come back to Kerala, but I want to know the reason. They said, sir, there are so many reasons, but I will give you just one reason that is good enough to make us decide to go outside. And what is that? If I get into a course of 4-year duration, there is no way in Kerala I will be able to complete it in less than 5.5 years. So if nothing else, I at least save 1.5 years. Why? Because everything, the whole industry, you will be surprised. I feel ashamed. The main revenue source of the Kerala government today is alcohol and lottery. Because no industrialist is ready to come there. All industries have fled from Kerala. There is no other source of revenue. Why? Because everywhere, I will give you just one example and then you can understand the kind of situation which prevails in a state which has 100% literacy. And people are so bright and so hardworking that all over the world, including all Indian states, Keralites dominate health sector, they dominate the medical practitioners, the people in the information technology, nurses, everywhere. People are so bright, but they don't stay in Kerala. Why they don't stay? Because in universities, the student unions of various parties, hardly a month passes when there is not violence here or there. And there is Dr. C.N.R. Rao, Professor Panikar, he himself is a leftist. 5 months back, he has written an article in a journal, and he has echoed the same things which Professor C.N.R. Rao has said. Now, I was feeling, since you have raised this issue, so I must tell you the whole thing. I was feeling so totally desperate and frustrated that nothing can happen. 2 years back, the interference is of such level that I wrote to the Chief Minister and I said that this cannot happen, that you want me to sign on all these irregular and illegal appointments. I will be very grateful to you if you make alternative statutory arrangement and relieve me of the duty of chancellor. They must have looked into this proposal from various angles, and they must have come to the conclusion that this is not possible. Otherwise, why he will write 3 letters to me, one after the other, no, you will continue as chancellor, no, you will continue. But there was, in the end, last para, there was some if and but. I said, I am not going to accept these if and buts. Either universities should be totally free from executive interference or I go. Then they sent the draft, not the letter, to Raj Bhavan, and you can make any changes you want. And it was only after I received unqualified guarantee, assurance that there will be no interference, that I resumed my duties. But they did not stop interfering even for a day. I was feeling so desperate. Honestly, I'm totally frustrated. But I do not know how to say it, but it is only because of the Honorable Supreme Court's judgment, where it has been made clear. State government has no role in the appointment of the Vice Chancellor. In the case of West Bengal, in the case of Kerala, Kerala Technical University, Supreme Court has said, if the selection committee consists of any non-academic, the appointment will be void ab initio, right from day one. Further, they have said, if the selection committee recommends only one name, then Chancellor has no discretion to exercise. Therefore, it will be void ab initio. It was only after these judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court came that I saw some hope, some light at the end of the tunnel. And I was encouraged by these decisions. Let me make a last attempt. If universities can be these, they have become Augean stables if they can be cleansed. And not cleansed in any other sense. No problem. One person may belong to any ideology. There is no problem. But here, underqualified and unqualified persons on a regular basis have been appointed to the universities for last, this is not a recent phenomenon. The present Chief Minister alone is not responsible for it. This is going on since, and that is the reason why Professor C.N.R. Rao said that the research in Kerala universities has come to a total standstill. So I am only trying, if by taking help of these judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court, we can revive our universities, because we have very good, very robust school system, that is 10+2. Very bright students are produced, and they are very capable, very competent.
So big takeaway, if Marx came back and looked at any place being governed in the name of Marxism, what will he say?
I said he will wonder what system they are running.
What system they are running.
And this is not only about the Marxists. This is true about so-called, I don't want to name because I will enter into another controversy.
Right.
But people who claim in the name of religion that they are going to establish this state or that state, and the states are running. In fact, let me, I won't say, but let me quote Allama Shibli. Yeah. He has said that a Muslim scholar of 3rd century, and he is a compiler of ahadith, that is prophetic narrations, has written in his book, I am not saying it, Allama Shibli has written, who is considered one of the erudite scholars. Yes, he has quoted him, a Muslim scholar of 3rd century. He says that he has written that if the Holy Prophet comes back and sees these Islamic societies who claim that they are running a government based on his teaching, that he will wonder that where all these things have come from. So I can quote Allama Shibli, I won't name anybody.
Well, and just for clarity, when you say 3rd century, it means 3rd century.
3rd century?
3rd century after the Prophet.
No.
No. Third,
Yes, after
after
the
the
Prophet.
Prophet.
Yes,
Yeah,
after the
yeah.
Prophet, that means 9th century.
9th century.
9th
Yes.
century, 10th century.
9th century in the Roman system.
9th, 10th century. And that is the time when they were running an empire.
Right.
That is the time when
Going
Muslim
right
Arab-
into
Yes, they
Europe.
were running the two existing empires, Byzantine and Sassanid, were taken over by them, and they were the single superpower in the world. At that time, this scholar has written that if the Holy Prophet comes back and sees these societies, how they are being run, then he will wonder what is the source of, based on which they are running their societies.
In fact, on which before Sanjeev, I will just, it's something that I had not also figured until a few years back, until a very dear friend of mine from Pakistan, who's a well-known columnist and thinker who I consider probably among the most secular people in the subcontinent and probably the only secular person in Pakistan. If I mentioned his name, the only secular opinion leader, if mentioned his name, it will draw risks to him, so I shall not, who said to me that, look, all of you remember Iqbal's Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara. But listen to his larger verse, which is Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara, Muslim mein hum watan hai Sara Jahan Hamara. And that's like an anthem in Pakistan. And one of the verses there is, Andalus ki wadi hai tujhko yaad meri, which is, Andalus is Andalusia in Spain. And the whole thing is basically a celebration of the conquests of that period.
Absolutely.
And those were a reality.
That is the reality. In fact, in the 1st century itself, when Byzantine Empire and Sassanid Empire were taken over, there were scholars in Makkah itself and Medina itself who said that you are only trying to expand your dominion, your empire. This is not a religious war. It has nothing to do with the religion. And Maulvi Chirag Ali, in some time in about 100 years back, Sir Sayyid had asked him to compile all these opinions. So his famous book, Jihad, has all these opinions that all the wars which Muslims conducted, they were not religious wars. Although these people who gave these opinions, they were sort of marginalized and blacklisted by the establishment of their time, but there were people who made their opinion known about these wars.
So the person who should be spending an hour with Arif Bhai is Imran Khan. Because if you look at his two UN speeches and his speech at OIC, he's actually celebrating these as the years of Islamic victories and trying to replicate that same mood now.
Yes. Actually, the whole problem is that they are relying only on the interpretations.
Right.
And interpretation is not a work of the truth. Interpretation is controlled by the powers of the time in which interpretations are made.
I think that's a very important.
Interpretation is basically the function of the power. It is the power who directs them how to interpret it. Otherwise, there cannot be any confusion as far as the provision of the Quran is concerned on this issue. It says, Uzina lillazina yuqataluna biyannahum zulimu. Permission to fight is given to only those who have been fought against, and not only fought against. That does not meet the whole criteria. Allazina ukhriju min diyarihim, because of their belief, their faith, their religion, they have been expelled from their homes. Permission to fight is given only to those. Today, the mindset is totally different. In the same verse it says وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهُ النَّاسَ بَعْضُهُم بِبَعْضٍ لَهُدِّمَتْ صَوَامِعٌ وَبِيَعٌ وَصَلَوَاتٌ وَمَسَاجِدُ يُذْكَرُ فِيهَا اسْمُ اللَّهِ كَثِيرًا. A law of nature is explained that if God had not kept checking one group of people by another group of people, then all the monasteries, temples, churches, synagogues, and the mosque, and then Quran says, you after using these four names, it says where the name of the God is mentioned much often. It does not say that only in the masjid name of the God is mentioned. They all would have been demolished. So they don't read the book. They only read the interpretations and then they come to their conclusions.
और अब तो increasingly लोग WhatsApp पे ही पढ़ते हैं.
हाँ, बिल्कुल सही. बिल्कुल सही.
Sanjeev, why don't you take this forward? I might use my liberty as a journalist and my sense of curiosity, but you have real scholarship, unlike me.
This is the most important text today is the Constitution of India.
Yes.
I mean, the text by which all of us are governed, by which the bureaucracy is governed, by all of us are governed, is the Constitution of India.
Absolutely.
Now, that is the text. Now, this text was also written at a particular point of time by Dr. Ambedkar as the chairman of the drafting committee. So again, there is this whole debate between people who think that the Constitution, that it's become like the Holy Grail. So I would like to ask you, sir, that how do we look at the Constitution of India? It is a foundational text. It is a very important text, and yet this text also must evolve with time, also must change with time, and therefore I thought let me ask this.
Sir, this text is constantly evolving itself. How many amendments have been made during last 75 years?
This means
More than 100?
So this is a strength, therefore.
This is the strength. In fact, that is how, unless if you have a document which makes the situation totally rigid and stagnant, then it will break down. You have to create a mechanism where you can respond creatively to the situations as it evolves, the challenges of the new times, the demands of the times in which we are living. Unless you have any system, whether it is our system, it is the political system, it is the religious system, any system, if it does not have the capability to respond to the changing times, then over a period of time it will collapse. And we have seen it in so many cases, that rigidity only brings downfall.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the American system is suffering because of the very, very rigid system that they have in terms of...
Rigid only in the sense that, not that it cannot be amended, but the process of amendment requires an arduous process.
In America, sir?
America.
In America also, because American Parliament, nobody gets large majorities. And the system is done in such a way with midterms that it's almost impossible for anybody. So now in our country also, the founders were very careful. Rajya Sabha, for example, 1/3 retire every 2 years. So that is again to make sure that there is not too much majoritarianism. In America, because there's only two parties, it's gone too far. In America also, voting is not by whip. So on many of these cases, many of these things, the president has to go and negotiate with his own party as well. So America is a more complex system.
Not that it is not open to amendment.
Yet
The provision is
open.
Provision is there.
It is open to amendment.
Provision is there.
And also some of the understanding of the
Yes.
Supreme Court
Yes.
there can take it. And also, these are things that we learn in our line of work, which is journalism. I was looking at this business of Mrs. Gandhi having added the words secular and socialist to our constitution in 1976. So I do understand, first of all, my basic knowledge that this was done by an illegitimate parliament because that parliament was in its 6th year.
Yes.
She had extended the term. But again, people say that, look, now the constitution says we should be a socialist country and nobody is going to change it. I'm afraid, even if Mr. Modi...
No, but what is the meaning of socialism?
So, sir, I'm just coming to that. So then I read up the debate of the Constituent Assembly. And there's a lot of demand for adding secular and socialist there. And the reply from Ambedkar was exactly what you are saying. He said this is a republic. People at various points of time will decide what's the right path to
Absolutely.
take.
Absolutely.
Who are we to lay down the path for them forever?
Yes, for future generations.
Maybe future generations would think, today everybody wants secularism and socialism, but maybe future generations would think, so that is the point, that you
Absolutely.
have to leave, our constitution is not a scripture.
So, which also means
And-
that the context of the 42nd Amendment, 42nd Constitutional Amendment
Yes.
has changed so completely.
Huh.
So that was the time when we brought in fundamental duties. So, what is happening is that all dispensations like some things of the 42nd Amendment
Right.
and not other things of the
Right.
42nd Amendment. So at times what happens is that we also want to interpret the amendment in our own light. I mean,
In our
that's
own light.
inevitable.
You are
But,
right. You
but I just wanted you to, in the overall context of the 42nd Amendment, what would you feel, sir, that because the context in which 42nd Amendment was sort of, I would not use the word given, I would say thrust upon us. Now that the context has changed, do you think we need to revisit the entire amendment in its entirety, or look at it clause by clause and see what is relevant to us today, and that's it.
Okay. I personally feel that since at the time of the amendment, no definition of these terms was inserted.
Okay.
I mean, there is no fixed definition. What is meant by secularism? What is meant by socialism? So people are free to decide what they understand by these terms. Because nowhere in the world people define it in the same manner. Every country where these systems have been embraced or accepted, they have their own, it should be suited to the national genius of that country. It should suit the national genius of that country. In fact, even secularism, which we have been using the word right since constitution came into force. I was, in a way, I won't say surprised, but some element of surprise, of course, was there. 1962, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, in one of his speeches, has said that there should be, Dr. Radhakrishnan has repeatedly said it, Mahatma Gandhi has said it, others have said it, but even Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru has said it in 1962 or 61 in one of his speeches. He said, when we use the term secularism, it does not mean that we have imported any foreign ideology. It only means that what he said, that this word we have used to describe the ancient Indian way of life, that is acceptance and respect for diversity. This Panditji himself has said, although I personally feel that possibly not that Panditji was a great student of Indian culture and civilization, I am not trying to find fault, but possibly at that time, if the word Bahuda, Ekam Sad Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, possibly because a country with 4,000, 5,000-year-old civilization, if you do not explain to them properly that this is not something which we have imported from outside, you can't persuade them to accept something about which they have doubt in their own mind that this is coming from somewhere else. If you tell them this is purely Indian, only the name of the English term, an English term has been used to describe, because Europe, it is secularism is a word term of recent vintage. It is not, whereas in India, the acceptance and respect for diversity has been a foundational virtue of our civilization and culture, right from the Vedic period. Ekam Sad Vipra Bahuda Vadanti comes from Rig Veda, and Janam Vibhrati Bahuda Vivachasam Nana Dharmanam Prithvi Yatokasam, that comes from Samveda, where Mother Earth is being invoked to give us blessing, like we who speak different languages, who worship different gods, who are so diverse. I mean, there's so much diversity, but like a family, members of the family. They are not totally similar. So are we. And we are invoking Mother Earth for her blessings. There is another, I don't exactly remember whether it is from the Upanishad or some other source. Bharteshu striya purusho nana varna pirkirtite nana de varchane yukta nana karmani kurvate. The women and men of India, they belong to different colors or different races. Varna, what has been used. They worship different gods. Their rituals and customs are different. So we have always, rest of the world has started accepting diversity and pluralism. The history is not more than 150 or 200 at the most. No, there is no way you can stretch it to 200 years. 100 to 150 years. When the world, otherwise they felt uncomfortable with the others. And our culture said, do it yadave bhebhavti. There is no way. In fact, I will recall, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, while accepting the Nobel Prize, he quoted from the Upanishad, and he said that I represent a culture where you have to see yourself in all beings and all beings in yourself, and once you train your mind to do that, then there is no room left for you not to pursue any enmity or hatred, not even to pursue any feeling of indifference towards anybody. This culture has been defined by Atma. We are all interlinked by Atma. So we have, I think these terms should not bother us much because we have the freedom to define them in a manner as we like.
I think let's move on and...
No, you go ahead. I think constitution, you had last turned to a good thing, so you take it forward.
No, I was just thinking, that in terms of... it's a very positive interpretation that he has given, that, fortunately there are no penalties
Yes.
evoked, that... And thank God it has not been defined that a secular is one who
Yes,
does A, B,
yes,
C, D,
yes,
E,
yes. That
and a
is
socialist is one who does A, B, C, D. Therefore, a budget can be presented by Nirmala Sitharaman. That can also be called a socialist budget.
Yes, yes.
Even the debate on on the freebies or on what can be given and what is not being given. So I think again it is because of the way in which from times immemorial we have been looking at everything in a particular context. And because the context keeps changing, the interpretation of the text, so even if the text is a line, the way when you put it in something, it sort of becomes very different. So thank you very much.
If you allow me, are you going to conclude or we still have time? No.
I'm not rushed.
No,
Time is yours.
if you allow, then I hear, because we are discussing text, context, and our strengthening of our national integration. I think what Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore has said in one of his essays is the key to everything. And it also helps us, if we study it properly, then it helps us to identify the problems. He has said, India cannot attain true independence unless it is recognized that her foundation is in mind, which with its diverse powers and confidence in those powers goes on all the time creating Swaraj for itself. Basic thing is, India's genius is intellect, dignity of intellect. The full confidence in the diverse powers of the mind. Unfortunately, during the period of decline, as Swami Rangnath Nanda explains in his famous book, 4 volumes, eternal values for a changing society. If I translate it into Hindi, एक परिवर्तनशील समाज के लिए सनातन मूल्य, eternal values for a changing society. He has said there that we are a society, we are people who used to worship knowledge, wisdom, Saraswati ke upasak. But during the period of decline, from being worshippers of Saraswati, we became villains of Saraswati. When we denied access to knowledge to our masses. And this, as a result of this denial, India became weak, India became vulnerable, and India became conquerable. So we need to, if you, I can also quote something, I can quote something more. Europe, the Renaissance has not really taken off at that time. It was, the process had started. 11th, 12th century. But Middle East was rife with intellectual activities, and that is the period which is called the golden period. By that time, the military conquests were over, and intellectual activities were in full steam. 5-6 historians of Arab origin, Tabari, Ibn Kasir, Ibn Asir, Ibn Rushd, they have written history of the world. And when you go through, each one has 7, 8, 9 volumes. And when you go through it, what they say, each one of them has pointed it out. Even Waqdi, even Haekal, all of them have pointed out. There are 5 dominant civilizations in the world. The Persian civilization is known for its majesty. Chinese civilization for its craftsmanship and obedience to rulers. Romans for their beauty. Turks for their bravery. And Indian civilization is the only civilization which is known for promotion of knowledge and wisdom.
Yes.
Every one of them, that was our identity. We were known for intellectual pursuits. Tapa swadhyay niritam, ever devoted to the pursuit of knowledge, unless we revive that tradition. Whatever words maybe there might have been used in the constitution or otherwise, or the problems we are suffering from, unless we are able to revive that tradition, knowledge tradition. And what Indian thought leaders had envisaged, the Indian thought leaders had envisaged, they said, Etad desha parshu tasya sakashad agra janmana swam swam charitram shikcheran prithviyam sarva manava. They had envisaged an India which will have the quality of teachers, which will be hub of knowledge, where people from different cultural backgrounds, from different national backgrounds, they will come to India, not to learn about India, their own tradition, their own culture, their own civilization, their own values. They will come to India to learn from Indian teachers. Sir, that I feel, that is where we need to work.
Absolutely. So I think it's in that context, that one of the discussions that we had yesterday was about the various ideas of India and how to interpret those ideas. So yesterday we had discussed, among other things, the text of Hind Swaraj, the text of Uttarapara address by Sri Aurobindo. We had also discussed Veer Savarkar's 1957, the first War of Independence. That also incidentally was written in the year 1909. So 3 fundamental texts were written in 1909. Then, sir, we discussed 1917 Annie Besant's address to the Indian National Congress, the first woman to have addressed such a large political gathering. And then there was Bhagat Singh's I Am an Atheist, again a very different interpretation, and again a very influential person in Indian polity and in Indian thought. And again at that point of time, looking at you had Ambedkar's annihilation of caste and waiting for a visa. Then you again had Veer Savarkar writing in 1939 on why Hindustan must remain one. And then you had Jinnah's address in 1940 on the breakup of India. So these are some of the things that, especially in the context of what you've just said, that all these texts of all the people, which have, some of whom which have reached the level of a classic, all of them have to be interpreted in their time. And if we take those things out of that time, so whether it's Hind Swaraj or whatever, so even Hind Swaraj cannot be sort of frozen in time. I think even Hind Swaraj, the dialogue is more about Swaraj. The dialogue is more about understanding that all control cannot be political. And I think some of the most important philosophical thoughts at that point of time was that it's not just political power that you have to look at. So maybe your thoughts on that, and then last words to Shekhar, and then we have to close because time is up, though we do want this conversation to go on and on and on, sir.
I totally agree with you because everything has a context, and if you tear it out of that context, then the same thing which is otherwise a boon becomes baneful. For India, we have for such a long period of time, we have carried the yoke of slavery. Now, after independence, what I said earlier was in the context that what should be our priority, the reconstruction of India, re-emergence of India. Swami Vivekananda said that India has only two ideals, service and renunciation. Intensify her in these two channels, the rest will take care of itself. But I feel that even renunciation and service you can revive only after reviving the knowledge tradition of India. Knowledge tradition, unless honestly I feel that if we become more familiar, the kind of problems which today we are facing, we have accepted. You just now said about Swaraj. What is Swaraj? Swaraj is not a fixed idea. As Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore has said, in having confidence in those powers, it goes on all the time creating for Swaraj itself. It means that actually whatever is, we feel whatever is eternal, that must be whatever is forever, we must keep building it forever.
That's true.
Every day new challenges come. But one thing constant on which we can shine light is how to strengthen the knowledge tradition. How to make all people, the words of Swami Vivekananda again are coming to my mind. He said that as long as there is hunger and ignorance, I hold everyone a traitor, very strong word, who having been educated at their expense pays no heed to them. So we will have to be more aware and more focused on reviving our knowledge tradition and making our people become familiar with our own heritage. Well, all these problems, this country has been partitioned 75 years back. If there is one society where nobody should feel any insecurity on account of one's faith, that should be India. Because here, the whole thing has been defined. It is not a parallel tradition. It is even if you want to describe it as religion, then it is a religion of religions. so many streams and so many traditions are clubbed together. Everybody is free to pursue whatever one believes in, to practice whatever one wants to do. And since the basically the title was text and context, so we are basically discussing the importance of the words, importance of knowledge. And our tradition tells us, Naksharam Mantri, the very word, syllable, it is, what does it mean? Akshar means? Akshar means something which cannot be destroyed.
Indestructible.
Indestructible. And when you put two or more than two units which are indestructible, then word come into existence. You can realize the power of the word. So that is why our tradition has been said, na aksharam mantrahinam, na moolam naushadham, ayogya purusham nasti, yojak istatra durlabha. There is not a single syllable which does not have the power of mantra. And there is not a single root or leaf which does not have the power of medicine. There is not a single person who is without talent. What we generally lack is somebody who can identify the talent and put it to proper use. And you, I think, you are doing that.
Well,
Yes, sir. So he certainly defined national interest, knowledge as the national interest. So I think that certainly comes out. Thank you very much, sir. I think.
and I think both of us can take the credit for having identified the talent. Now, I think after this tour de force, a standing ovation is called for. Arif Saab has found time to come a long distance and speak his mind as candidly as we have learned to see him speak.
जोरदार तालियां, thunderous round of applause. Indeed, what a beautiful session it was. कितना खूबसूरत, कितना बेहतरीन सत्र था ये, जहां पाठ, पृष्ठभूमि और राष्ट्र हित तीन प्रमुख मूल्यों पर हमने बहुत सुंदर वार्ता देखी. Once again, तालियां तो बनती हैं जोरदार. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. I would now request Adarniya Sanjeev Chopra sir, Adarniya Shekhar Gupta ji to present a token of gratitude and felicitations to the Honorable Governor sir. Adarniya Shri Arif Mohammad Khan sir, Honorable Governor of Kerala. Taliyan barkarar rahein as Adarniya Sanjeev sir and respected Shekhar Gupta sir presents the token of appreciation and gratitude. And yes, हम देख सकते हैं काफ़ी सभी इस समय काफ़ी उत्साहित हैं. इतने सुंदर विचार हमने समझे इस सत्र में कि किस प्रकार से ज्ञान को और उसकी पृष्ठभूमि को सबसे ज़्यादा सर्वश्रेष्ठ तरीके से हम समझ सकते हैं. Yes, Rashmi ma'am, please join us. And Rashmi ma'am has something special to share amongst us. Sanjeev sir, please do the honors. Shekhar sir, please do the honors. And आप सबकी तालियां. Wow is here with all the wonderful people. And I would now request Rashmi ma'am also to please join. Okay, this is a very important announcement. Sapla. Yeah. Wow, volunteers.
Please report.
Yeah. Yeah, please. Wow, volunteers. And
Sir has been very kind. We are having a wow team picture with Sir. All volunteers to report. Fadafat. Request. I'll read out. Please come very quickly. Sanjeev is here. Tanya, Amna Mirza, Jyoti Dhawan ma'am, Shalini Dhanda, Shalini Rao, Bikram ji. I know. Yavanika, me, Mr. Saxena, Mr. Abhishek Kesarwani, Dr. Dhobal, Mr. J.P. Pandey, General Pannu. I hope I have not left out anybody from the team. I think I've got them all. Can we all have a group picture, please? Can we organize the chairs? The volunteers will organize the chairs. छोटी हाइट नीचे जाओ, स्टेज के सामने. नीचे जाओ. Ma'am. Come na. Giovanni, come. Ma'am, come. Should we go on that side? Come na. Let's go on that side. Come, sir. Yeah, these men are taller than us. It's okay. I'm gonna put. You are not taller.